He was captured and brought into captivity about 30 years ago because he was deemed to be a problem crocodile.
There is something really ironic about this man calling this crocodile a problem. When we look at a crocodile, we see them obviously as a predator. But when it comes down to who is the biggest predator in that clip, well, the crocodile isn't the problem. This guy was an expert. He was a respected zoologist, a crocodile specialist. He was a man who literally advised on documentaries alongside the British institution that is David Attenborough. He built a career studying some of the world's most formidable predators, and on camera, Adam Britton spoke about conservation and coexistence, calm, measured, trusted. But in 2022, police knocked on his door in Darwin at dawn. And what they uncovered was so extreme that a judge would later warn the courtroom that details could cause psychological harm. Because while Britton dedicated his public life to understanding predators, something far darker was living behind closed doors. And the real question is this: how do you hide this kind of darkness in plain sight? Hi guys, welcome back and thanks for joining me today. I just want to say before I kick off with today's true crime case that this is going to be one that's difficult to swallow, I promise you. We are absolute animal lovers in the Western world. At the end of the day, our homes often have cats and dogs and birds and gerbils and rats. We have them because we care deeply about other sentient life forms. And so today's case is going to really hurt. I have rarely done research on a case where at the end of it, for about an hour, I am just shaking my head and reliving what I've learned. And I want to say that to you so that you understand that if you're going to listen to what I'm going to talk about today, there is going to be some very explicit things that I talk about because I want to demonstrate the gravity of harm within this man and the gravity of harm within certain sections of our community, because this man isn't an individual who's doing this. There's more than him. There are individuals out there who connect with him, who share the fascination and fixation and disgusting fetish that he shares. And we have to be aware of the things that go on behind closed doors, even when they are astonishingly evil. Let's talk about Adam Robert Corden Britton. So he was born in the UK. He was born on the 16th of May, 1971. He was born in Wakefield, West Yorkshire. And as a child, he was somebody who was just fascinated by wildlife and nature. I would say that even though he talks about the fact he was fascinated by wildlife and nature in a really positive context, when he's been on television, working in documentaries, actually what he's really talking about is the fascination that he had with harming wildlife, harming nature. But this interest was apparently driven by his mum. She would show him bugs in the garden, and I'm pretty sure that he would stamp on those bugs later on when she wasn't looking. He had quite a nice education. He attended Queen Elizabeth Grammar School in Wakefield, and he went on to study zoology at the University of Leeds. That's where he graduated in 1992. Now, originally he had wanted to be a vet, and that is harrowing, because we know that vets have access to very strong drugs and animals. And believe me, the darkness in this human being that I'm going to talk about today should not be anywhere near sedatives. But essentially, he didn't get to be a vet because his grades weren't good enough to pursue that career. I mean, in the UK, if you want to be a vet, you're looking at straight A stars to achieve that kind of goal. So even if you drop one grade, you're not going to get into veterinary school. But he does then go on to obtain a PhD in zoology at the University of Bristol. So he's a bright guy. And during his PhD, his research was focused on insectivorous bats and how they hunted. It doesn't surprise me this guy wants to look at things that hunt, because that's basically his DNA. Now, despite the fact that he focused on bats during his PhD, I would say his real interest was always in crocodiles. And again, when you think about crocodiles, they are awesome creatures. They are incredible creatures. They're strangely beautiful in a terrifying way, but nonetheless deadly if you happen to cross a saltwater crocodile. And it says that he's interested in predators. And he'd just had this really keen interest in crocodiles since he was 6 or 7 years old. He'd watched documentaries such as Life on Earth with David Attenborough, and he said that it just blew his mind when he watched those particular documentaries. And he said, I just wanted to work in that area, and knew from that moment that I saw that first documentary, that was where I wanted to pursue my goal. And in a later interview, he said, I got to the point where I was going to the university library and getting like these papers on bats, and I'd have this little pile of papers, and I'd always have a pile next to it, which is about 5 times thicker, which was papers on crocodiles. So at this moment in time, apparently he's pursuing his dream, which is to get closer to nature and ideally to the revered crocodile in his mindset. Now, that's why in 1996, he ends up relocating to Darwin. That's a city in Northern Territory, Australia. I spent quite a bit of time there. I loved Darwin. I loved the fact that it was hot. I don't care how humid it gets. I love the fact that it was just rugged. And I love the fact that the people were really down to earth. And to some degree, one of the things that you have to get used to in Darwin is you can't go in the sea because you'll definitely get eaten by a shark, a crocodile, or killed by some kind of jellyfish. And you can go and visit places like Kakadu National Park, which is just incredible. And like I said, it's a rugged and it's at times a barren arena and area to inhabit, but it's beautiful. And when I went to Kakadu, one of the things that we did was go down the river just looking at all these saltwater crocodiles. They are incredible beasts, and you think the fact that they're prehistoric in nature, I can understand why there's an allure to actually study them. So he begins focusing on crocodilian research, primarily on saltwater crocodiles. Yes, they are the ones that will eat you. And he basically knew that if he wanted to study and learn about these animals, these creatures, then he'd need to live somewhere other than where he'd grown up. He wanted to explore different parts of the world, basically out of his comfort zone. So shortly after moving to Australia, this is when Britton meets a woman called Erin, and she's a very bright cookie. She's a biologist. She's also a wildlife ranger. And when they met, the pair genuinely believed they were soulmates. And in 1997, the happy event happens and they get married. Now, in 2006, Britton and Erin set up their own wildlife consultancy business. They actually named it Big Gecko, and this specialised in crocodile research and conservation management. They also provided footage for the media, such as National Geographic. And in addition to this, Britton starts working at Charles Darwin University as a research associate. And it's here that essentially Britton's career just starts to take off, it starts to fly. He's contacted in relation to Life in Cold Blood. Now, this is a documentary featuring, as I said, the British institution, who is David Attenborough. I mean, he genuinely is somebody that everyone looks up to in the UK. With respect, the guy is still working, and I think he's nearly 100, if not 100 years of age. So that demonstrates the kind of man that he is, and he is just second nature when you think about documentaries involving any kind of animals and creatures, because David Attenborough is the person you immediately think about. And to work with somebody like that, for somebody who is a zoologist, for example, would be awe-inspiring. It would be a dream come true. Now, what had happened is this particular documentary wanted to have close-up shots of crocodiles underwater, specifically 2 crocodiles copulating, which is going to be pretty challenging, isn't it? When you're thinking about saltwater crocodiles that will eat you, it's going to be difficult in the wild to get that shot. We know that when it comes down to documentary makers, the cameramen are awesome, and they do put themselves in challenging scenarios, but I think we can agree that would be a little bit too far. But Britton told the documentary makers it's going to be really difficult for you to capture this in the wild. So instead, the BBC paid for an enclosure on Britton's property, and that enclosure housed Smog, who is a 60-year-old crocodile who'd lived in captivity for years. So this basically allows them to capture the footage easily. And he actually ends up working as a scientific advisor on the documentary. And because of this, he becomes known for his expertise as a leader in his field, and Smog, essentially Britton's pet, just became a star in his own right, essentially. In fact, Britton commented that if you ever see an underwater shot of a saltwater crocodile, there is a good chance it's Smog.
Whenever they want to get a shot of a crocodile underwater, which will be impossible to achieve in the wild, then Smog's your crocodile.
Now, Britton started appearing on TV shows, on wildlife programmes, for example, Man vs. Animal, Monster Croc Hunt, Deadly 60, National Geographic Explorer, Natural World, Animal Face Off, Danger Down Under, and Weird, True and Freaky, to name a few. He also took on quite a lot of advisory roles on Chased by Dinosaurs and Allosaurus, a Walking with Dinosaurs special. Also, the film Blackwater is literally filmed on his property. So this guy isn't just doing the work as an academic, he's not just doing the work as a conservationist, he's now, to some degree, a media star. And the thing about those individuals is because we see them on our screens, we feel like we know them to some degree. And he comes across as enthusiastic and calm and kind and very engaged with the work that he does. And of course, passionate about wildlife, crocodiles in particular, and conservation. But the thing is about the screen, what we're watching is just the myth of who we believe that individual is. We have no idea what's going on in their mind. We have no idea what's going on behind closed doors. In this case, examples that perfectly. Now, like I said, he's working as an academic as well, so he's publishing numerous academic papers. The majority did focus on crocodiles, but some of them were about bats, which had been his PhD study. And one of those papers was titled Crocodile Attack in Australia, an analysis of its incidence and review of the pathology and management of crocodilian attacks in general. Because, of course, it's rare that people get attacked by crocodiles in Australia, but it certainly happens. Now, in 2011, Britton ends up travelling to the Philippines, and he actually assisted in measuring the world's longest crocodile. So like I said, he's being sought out for these roles. People genuinely trust him and genuinely believe that this is a guy committed to the animal kingdom. But behind this respected reputation, behind this facade of caring for animals, Britton was hiding one of the most depraved and, to be honest, grotesque secrets that I have ever come across. He routinely was abusing dogs. He was raping them, then he was torturing them, and then he was killing them. He'd film himself carrying out the most depraved acts, and then he would just go ahead and share those depraved acts and footage online. He'd upload it to Telegram, that's an encrypted messaging app, and he would post the videos under usernames Cerberus or Monster. At least he knows who he is. He is absolutely a monster. He'd also blur out his face, of course he would, he didn't want to be identified. And he posted a number of videos which were found to have all been filmed between November 2020 and April 2022. But of course, just because he's got to the stage where he's actually confident enough to upload videos of him doing this vile stuff, doesn't mean he wasn't doing it for years before. Of course he was. Of course, he's always been a predator hiding in plain sight. It's just now he's got to the point where whatever he was doing didn't titillate himself enough, so he's had to then share it. That's what's happened. It's the incremental shifting of titillation. You know, at first he can just rape the dog, then he can harm the dog, but then it's not enough. He needs to share that. So you can bet your bottom dollar this guy has been doing it for many, many years. He'd also message other users promoting and suggesting that they should also be violent against animals, particularly dogs. And I think it's really interesting to choose dogs. First of all, dogs are unbelievably sentient, they're incredibly bright, they're devoted, and they express. So when you look at a dog's face, they express their emotions. You can see it in their eyes when they're fearful, when they're angry, when they're loving. So picking a dog, I think, is because it's the closest he can get to a sentient being that reflects human emotion. And he knows that he will see pain and he can enjoy watching their pain when he harms them. He actually said in one of the messages that the reason that he chose dogs was he considered them to be more erotic. Again, why? Because, like I said, they mimic and mirror so much of our emotions as human beings. And he was very prevalent online. He posted in different groups. So one was called Doggo Nightmare. That had 10 active members, and another had 18 active members. Every single one of those should be removed from wherever they are and taken to a dark room and left for eternity. That's where I am at this moment in time with how these people should be treated. Now, between October 2021 and 2022, He posted 43 images depicting grotesque animal cruelty. In January 2022, he made a streaming channel. He posted 49 images and videos to this streaming channel. Thankfully, someone who had a level of conscience and empathy saw it, and they alerted the police. They'd seen one of the videos and they were absolutely disgusted. And in this particular video, which was posted around March 2022, just take a breath, guys, because it's going to be hard to hear. An adult dog and 9 puppies were being horrifically tortured and killed. A detail in that video when the police are handed it is very important, because the police take this really seriously, and that matters, doesn't it? Because for so many years, animals were considered property. They still are to some degree. But because of the fact that they were considered property, very often criminal charges didn't occur, even when horrendous abuse was played out. So it warms my heart to know that the police took it really seriously and they wanted to get the person who was in this video. Unfortunately, the detail in the video provides a clue to the perpetrator's location. So it's noticed that the adult dog that's featured in the video is wearing a collar attached to an orange City of Darwin Council lead, which read, "Great pets start with you." Because of that detail, they were able to identify Britton from that information, which is amazing police work, and thank God they did, because they were just scratching the surface of depravity regarding this man when they found this particular footage. Now, on April the 22nd, 2022, that's the day at 6:30 a.m, Britton's arrested at his home. He was described as being calm by the arresting officers, but of course, he doesn't work in the way that you or I work. We're talking about somebody with absolutely psychopathic predation in his nature. So at the end of the day, when he's arrested, he's going to be calm. It doesn't mean that he isn't feeling something, but let's be clear, these kind of people, they don't have the nuances of our emotional vocabulary. Psychologically, they are blunted in many ways. And he's probably thinking about, what do I need to do next in that moment?
Can I assist with the investigation once I've spoken with my lawyer?
Now, a warrant had been obtained, his home was searched, and when they actually do that, they discover a torture room. And that torture room is set up with cameras. They also discovered a decomposing body of a puppy, a severed dog's head and limbs. At this point, they seize his devices, his phone, his laptop and cameras. Now, bear in mind, at this moment in time, Erin doesn't know this is playing out. She's on a business trip. As far as she's concerned, he's going to be there when she gets home. She's completely oblivious to this heinous crime that's been playing out. And when she first heard he'd been taken into custody, she literally has no idea what he could have done. It doesn't make any sense. This is a man who, as far as she is concerned, has been above the law. This is a man she shared a life with. There's been no implications as far as she is concerned that she's literally been sharing her life with a dog rapist and killer. And as they start to progress the investigation, it is harrowing. It is utterly harrowing beyond belief. In fact, the depravity, I would almost liken it to somebody like the horrendous child molester Peter Scully. I appreciate that he harmed children, which is just grotesque beyond measure. But what I'm saying is the intensity and the repetition, that kind of mindset is very, very similar. Now, it was found during this investigation that Britton had tortured at least 42 dogs. But bear in mind, there'll be so many more. And he had brutally killed at least 39 of these. And the torture was horrific. It was so painful for these beautiful animals. He did unimaginable things to these dogs. And in some cases, those dogs suffered over days. He drew it out. Now, media outlets who were covering this, they refused to report the specific things he'd done. They called the details too graphic to publish. I am going to speak about some of those details later on because I need to let you know the kind of monster this man is. And I can only do that when I share some of his actions. It also came out that Britton had been abusing his own Swiss Shepherd pet dogs as well. But in the messages that he was posting, he said, "I only badly mistreat other dogs. My own dogs are family and I have limits." I mean, that in itself, that statement in itself is truly terrifying. My own dogs are family and I have limits, as if if you're a member of the family, he'll still do terrible things to you. He just won't murder you and torture you to a degree where you die. He said, they eat my shit, but they're eager for it. I shit on them, but they let me. Occasionally I get a bit rougher, like mouth fucking and holding them down, but I lavish them with treats afterwards. But other dogs, fuck them. I will beat them, torture and snuff them. Snuff means kill them. It's the word that's used in snuff videos where people are actually murdered for pornographic detail and for distribution. It's horrific. He also said, then they come readily and I'll do it to them again the next day. I have no emotional bond to them. They are toys, pure and simple, and plenty more where they came from. It's just stomach churning to tell you this information. Because this is a real human being. And this was a man who was meant to protect animals, and look at what he's doing. Now, if it was another dog, if it wasn't his family dog, he would usually kill them. So to his own dogs, he did things like defecating on them and into their mouths so they ate it. He'd urinate into their mouths. He'd masturbate the male dog with feces. He'd encourage the dogs to lick his erect penis. And this didn't turn into serious violence because apparently he reportedly loved them, even though he did all those things to them. I mean, he just sounds like every predator, doesn't he? That basically he thinks he's a good person because he doesn't actually kill the animal in this case, even though he violates the animals in so many ways, it's unspeakable. Now, the dogs that he tortures and kills, he would get through free or cheap listings on websites like Gumtree and Craigslist. By the way, think about it. On a psychological level, if you've got a dog to get rid of, maybe you're tired of the dog, you can't handle the dog, you've not got the money for the dog, you're moving area, you're going to think you have struck gold if this animal protector turns up to take those dogs. It goes without saying, of course, he'd be first in line. He actually told another user on a website that they needed a place where people advertise dogs to sell or give away to good homes because that's how you get dogs with no strings attached. She's actually advising people how to get those dogs. He said, you have to be smart about where you get them from. Don't go to a shelter, private sales only. But people giving away dogs because they have to move in to stay or something, that's what you're looking for. No strings attached, no follow-ups. Craigslist is perfect, but you have to wait for the right dog and price. Some will give it away for free if they need a quick sale, or if it's a vicious dog or something. I know people who get their dogs this way. So he's talking about knowing a community of people who are going out of their way to get dogs so they can torture and kill them, and no doubt make content of doing that. Not all of them will. Some of them will just do it privately and have conversations with people who are in these groups and watch other people's footage. But this means there are a community of people doing this. And he said what he would do is he'd promise the old owners a loving home. He'd actually take photos of them prior to the abuse, and he would send those photos to the old owners to update them, show that they're okay in the new home. But that's obviously a ruse. In fact, in some instances, when he's sending those photographs to the old owners, they would be unaware that the dog that they'd handed over, believing they could trust this man, had already been mercilessly tortured and killed. Now, when it comes down to Britton, he did plead guilty to 63 offences. He couldn't have not done. How could he not have pled guilty? It's literally on video. He did it. And he's only pleading guilty because he wants a lesser sentence, let's be clear. Now, 39 of those offences were for aggravated cruelty, inflicting cruelty on an animal while intending to cause death of the animal. 8 of these were for bestiality, so instances where he'd inserted his penis into either the vagina or anus of 8 dogs. 4 were for abuse and sexual exploitation of dogs. 2 were for attempted bestiality, and 2 of the charges were regarding his own pet dogs. So they said that he failed to ensure his dogs received the minimum level of care. 4, they were for using the messaging service to upload videos of torture and communicating with others about that torture. And 4 offences related to child abuse material. Of course they did. Because this kind of deviant, they want the most vulnerable. The power that they feel over individuals who they have control over. That's what feeds them. So the fact that he's interested in children as well does not surprise me at all. It just shows you the evil dripping through the core of this man. It's as simple as that. The evil is in every single atom of his body. To want to harm children, to want to harm animals, it shows the deep evil within you. And he'd actually accessed material and was found to have 15 files in his laptop containing child abuse material. And he'd also sent child abuse material to himself on March 17, 2020 and March 27, 2021. It is harrowing to imagine that this man was hiding in plain sight. Now, on August the 8th, 2024, you won't be surprised to know that he was given a prison sentence, but I would say it is devastating to learn that it was only 10 years and 5 months in prison. Also, that means he's going to be unable to have animals on his property for the rest of his life. And Britton said, are you ready for this? That he accepts full responsibility for the pain and trauma he caused and deeply regretted his actions. No, he didn't. I'm going to talk about his actions. I'm going to talk about the level of gratuitous violence that he bestowed on these beautiful animals to indicate why I disagree with what he's saying about regret. The only thing he regrets is getting caught. This is a guy who genuinely thought he could go under the radar. He wore his interests, his conservation, his business as a mask. Who would look at him and think, this guy's secretly raping and murdering dogs? You wouldn't. You think this is the guy who's absolutely trusting. We can, without a shadow of a doubt, believe that this man has the best intentions where animals are concerned. He built that picture purposefully. And it's only because he started to get confident that no one cared to some degree about dogs because of his own belief bias, that he starts sharing those videos that eventually have a good person find them and report to the police. Because genuinely somewhere he's got a core belief that nobody would actually be bothered if they saw this material, or that everyone secretly likes this material. Because bear that in mind as well. These kind of monsters, they don't see themselves as monsters. They just think everyone's a little bit like themselves, and therefore, why worry when they upload this kind of horrendous footage? He also said he's going to receive treatment for his rare paraphilic disorder. How? How are you going to receive treatment for your rare paraphilic disorder? So what he's talking about there is paraphilia is when you have a sexual deviance on the whole that involves something that the rest of the people around you would go, that just ain't okay. And certainly you would hope that he would get some kind of help to deal with his impulses and compulsions, but you can't change your particular orientation. He likes harming animals and he gets a sexual rush from doing so. He likes killing dogs. He likes raping dogs. He likes abusing and torturing dogs. That's what he likes. You're not going to be able to cure that. It's in him. Now, in the sentencing remarks, the judge actually said that Britton had shown grotesque depravity and cruelty towards animals, and the judge excused the sheriff's officers and actually warned observers that they may need to leave the court if they are susceptible to emotional outbursts or an adverse reaction to the information that they might hear. And I completely understand why the judge said that, because this is truly horrific. He said the descriptions have the potential to cause nervous shock or some adverse psychological reaction in persons who are exposed to them. That's why I've said at the very beginning of me talking about this, that if you are going to listen to this, you have to be prepared. I don't think I've ever talked about anything that has been as graphic before. And I really don't want you to carry on listening unless you feel that you've got the stomach to hear about true torture and true abuse. But like I've said, if we're to fundamentally understand the mark of this monster, and the fact there are others like him, then we genuinely have to acknowledge the kind of horror these animals were put through. The judge actually read out examples of some of the horrific things that he did to the dogs. These are so hard to listen to. You are animal lovers. I am an animal lover. It is terrifying that these kind of things have played out in reality. Around December 2020, Britton acquires a brown female dog. He takes that beautiful creature to a quiet area off the Arnhem Highway and he films himself abusing and killing it. He tied black tape around the dog's throat and muzzle. She was struggling to breathe. Can you imagine that? This incredibly beautiful beast struggling to breathe because the person who's meant to be looking after her has literally taken tape and put it around her throat and her muzzle, and she's finding it difficult to just stay alive. He then uses his finger to penetrate her vagina. He spreads her legs, then he punches her in the head and the body really hard 20 times. This is while he's masturbating because he's a sexual sadist. He choked her. He sat on that beautiful creature. He jumped up and down on her. He's pulling her ears at that moment in time and he's rubbing his penis against her head. He then ties her to a log. He urinates on her face and body. Imagine the fear in that animal. This is the sentient creature. Imagine the terror, the pain. She's going through all this. And this man, he just wants to put her through as much humiliation, as much depravity as he can conceive of in his mind. After he's done this, he uses a kitchen knife to slice open the dog's chest. He then pushes the knife into her anus. He skins the front hip and her leg. He peels the skin back. He then skins the right side of her face and he cuts off her right ear. Then he masturbates into that severed ear while repeatedly shoving the knife into her anus. He then cuts open her genital area. She was still alive at this point. And then finally, he slices open her stomach and he uses his hands to pull out her organs. He then placed the organs on himself. He then masturbated against them and he ejaculates onto them. It's all on video. And he's proud of it. He's proud enough to share it. It's really hard to share this information with you. I'm finding it really challenging to say it. I know you're going to struggle to hear it. On October the 22nd, 2021, he brought an adult female dog. He also brought her 9 puppies for $150. He took those dogs out of the car. He undressed so that he committed the following crimes whilst he's naked. He picks up the first defenceless puppy. He struck it 13 times on the head with a mallet. He caused the skull to split open, brain matter to fall onto a log. Then he encouraged the female mother to lick up the spilled brain matter. Picks up the second puppy, sawed it in half with a hacksaw. Encouraged the mother to eat its intestines. He picked up the third puppy. He inserted the blade of a knife into its anus and genitals. Obviously caused blood to pour out as it died. He masturbated while holding the injured puppy and then inserted his penis into its anus. He then picked up the fourth puppy, placed it on a log, stood on it with his full body weight, sat on it and then masturbated while he choked the puppy with his other hand. Picked up the fifth puppy, inserted the blade of a knife into its anus and genitals, causing again blood to pour out. Picked up the sixth puppy, inserted the blade of a knife into its mouth and down its throat until the blade came out of the middle of the puppy's back. Picked up the seventh puppy, inserted the blade of a knife into its stomach of the puppy, cut it from its chest to its genitals, causing its intestines to fall out. Then encouraged that mother dog to eat the intestines. He picked up the eighth puppy and used his hands to twist and break the animal's legs. He then inserted the blade of a knife into the upper stomach and exposed its internal organs, encouraged the mother dog to eat the internal organs, and then he sawed off the head of the puppy with a hacksaw. He then placed the decapitated head of that puppy onto his penis whilst he masturbates. He then forcefully held the adult dog's mouth open whilst he urinated into that adult dog. He then tied the adult dog up, placed duct tape around her mouth and legs. He used an unknown wooden object, it was approximately 1 metre in length, to hit the adult dog in the head on 9 occasions, and he used a mallet to strike her another 20 times. Then he used a knife to stab the dog behind her left front leg. Then amputated 2 of her mammary glands. He then inserted the knife into the dog's stomach. He exposed her internal organs, and then he inserted 3 of the dead puppies into the dog's empty stomach cavity. The 9th puppy had escaped into a hollow log, but he found it. And then he stabbed it to death through a crack in the log. So he filmed all of those murders of those beautiful animals, aside from the final puppy. It's that video that I've just described that was reported to the authorities, and that's what got him caught. If you've listened this long, I just want to acknowledge how horrific that information is. But this is real. And he isn't alone in doing these things. There are communities of people who do this. They're demons. They're demons amongst us. It's as simple as that. Now, as well as those two specific examples, the judge also listed other things that he'd done to dogs. So he'd given both male and female dogs oral sex, he'd licked a dog's anus, he'd forced his penis into a dog's mouth, he'd also rubbed feces onto a dog, his own feces. He'd put a knife in a dog's vagina and he'd then cut that dog's vagina with a razor blade. He'd cut off a dog's vagina using pliers and a knife. Can you imagine the agony he's putting these animals through? He masturbated into a dog's severed vagina. He fed a severed vagina to another dog. He had placed a 3-barbed fish hook into a dog's vagina, then forcefully ripped it out. He'd repeatedly penetrated a dog's anus with a screwdriver. He'd put a glass bottle in a dog's anus. He used a knife to cut off a dog's penis. He hit a dog's scrotum with a metal mallet. He cut open a dog's scrotum. He jabbed needles into a dog's scrotum and he crushed a scrotum with pliers. He used a hacksaw to remove one dog's leg and he sliced off a dog's tail using an axe and another with bolt cutters. He pulled dogs' toenails out with pliers. He used a knife to cut off a dog's head. He hung one dog from a tree using a lead and a collar. He burned a dog's genitals with a lighter, another with a blowtorch. He actually attacked a dog's penis with a blowtorch. He spray painted a dog with the word slut. He would jump up and down on top of dogs. He twisted a dog's back leg to break them. He masturbated whilst he sliced one dog's throat so that blood went all over his own penis. This is a man who is walking amongst us. To this man, this is normal. This is just a fun sexual activity, what I've described. These are sentient creatures who went through the most unimaginable agony. This man is serial killer, full stop. I appreciate he's chosen dogs as his victims for the most part, obviously children as well, because of the fact that he's had that child abuse material, but he's chosen dogs. And the reason for that is he thinks he's clever. He can carry out what he wants to carry out on human beings by killing dogs, but won't get the same kind of sentence if he got caught, and can minimize what he's doing because they're just animals. He's doing this to dogs because he knows that to graduate to serial killer status and kill people is probably going to be problematic. I mean, making people disappear is very challenging. People aren't just giving away their children, for example. So he's playing it safe. But believe me, he has absolute serial killer DNA within him. And the fact that he's such a sexual sadist demonstrates he can never be cured, because this is about power and control. It's about that titillation that he gains psychologically from carrying out these horrific actions. And some of the messages that he was posting online under the names Monster or Cerberus, they're also showed with the court. And some of the messages are just harrowing. They say things like, I was talking with someone else about why they love to hurt dogs. That was what I'd been thinking. I wasn't sure at first, but now I live for it. I can't stop myself hurting dogs. I'm going to get another dog to kill tomorrow. I plan to hurt it a lot. I'm ridiculously excited about it. The sadism part is more recent. I always had it in me. I was sadistic as a child to animals, but I had repressed it. In the last few years, I let it out again. And now I can't stop. I don't want to. It's 5 months old, so a puppy really, but intact. And I'm going to hurt it badly. Unfortunately, I only have a short time window, maybe 2 hours, so it will be fast and brutal, but sometimes I get to take my time. The longest was 4 days. What people might not realize is if you want to cut off an erect cock, it's got to be the first thing you do, because the dog won't get erect again if you torture him first or destroy his balls. Oh shit, that was fun. Took a little over 4 hours and he finally gave up the ghost before I got his face. Shame. I was looking forward to that part, but I got a ton of good shit done to him. Fuck, it was great. Did a couple of bucket list things to him, which people have always been requesting. Got a lot of footage over 2 cameras, including slow motion. He goes on to say, I will take a while to edit the full thing, but I'll put some clips out soon. I was raping his wrecked arsehole and fighting so hard not to come, but no. I must be good and save myself for the grand finale, which was going to be tying him from a suspended horizontal rope and then slicing his guts open onto me underneath. But the fucker died before I could do that, so I'll never get to come on his suffering. Well, I will, but it will all be on video. I knew knifing his arsehole roughly was probably going to finish him off, and it did, lol. It was either that or move onto his face, and that would have finished him off anyway, so it was one or the other. I've seen several dogs just get pushed over the edge when you work on the face. They really don't like it. One of my fetishes is cutting up dogs' faces, and I love it when they're fairly limp but breathing and they let me slice open their faces. I just love disfiguring them. What you describe is exactly what I want to do with my fuck toys, except I go further until they can no longer hold on to life. Sometimes I love spilling their hot blood onto my cock. Their last breaths are what triggers me to come. Obviously, the serious damage and snuff is only possible because they are random fuck toys, but I slowly got addicted to it once I had the chance to try it. I could just as easily come through beating and whipping alone. I've also enjoyed mouth fucking a bitch while smashing her head against the wall, although I didn't break any teeth. You have to want to do it. Either you hate dogs so much you want to fuck one up, or you find the idea of torturing and snuffing them hot and sexy. I find the latter. I like dogs. I like them better when I fuck them up. That makes the videos hot when the guy's into it. But watch videos of dog snuffing and torture. Keep watching until it's so hot you want to do it yourself. I think if you're still afraid of hurting the dog, you'll tap out before doing anything. I almost did that, but pushed ahead and did it. I loved it afterwards. Destroying dogs is fucking hot because it's taboo. More so because it's sexual. I get to fuck the dog first, then fuck it up. Can somebody put this guy down? Seriously. I know some people will be listening and saying, that's really harsh, Emma. At the end of the day, this guy's depraved, but there's got to be something wrong with him. No, he's a cold-blooded psychopath. No one's going to heal this man. No one's going to heal this human being. This guy is dangerous beyond measure. This cool, calm exterior that he's been portraying, that's because he's a psychopath. He's not going to change at all. He's going to spend time in prison, and 10 years is piffly. It's pathetic for what he's done. Imagining what he's going to do when he gets out. Come on, let's be real. This guy could just disappear into ether. He could go to a country where he can get hold of dogs and no one's going to care what he's doing with them. He can just reignite that fire. I mean, Australia's not going to hold anything for him, is it? When he gets out of prison, he's still going to have all of these feelings and he'll probably just go somewhere where he can get away with it. Now, November the 1st, 2022, the Animal Protection Regulations was introduced in Northern Territory. So this reforms penalties for animal cruelty and it increases the maximum penalty. It also introduced new offences and implemented fines. A member of the Animal Justice Party called the sentence that he got pathetically weak. 100% it is. This guy is a serial killer in the making. They said, our country's animal sexual abuse laws are entirely out of touch with community values and expectations. When someone tortures, rapes and kills animals in such a sadistic way, they should be punished accordingly. Yes, put him down. Or at least lock him up for the rest of his natural life until he comes out in a box. A box that we can then, I don't know, flush down a toilet after someone's defecated on it. You know, at the end of the day, this guy is going to be a dangerous person till he dies. They also went on to say, although the changes will be a positive step going forwards, they do not apply to Britton's case. Now, whilst investigating Britton, police found another 2 people were engaging in animal cruelty online. This was a married couple, Lucas and Heather Van Wert. They came from Ohio. They'd actually exchanged animal abuse material with Britton, including 705 photos. Can you believe these people exist? And they do, they exist in our communities. Lucas Van Wert ended up admitting to sexually abusing, beating and strangling a dog. He had created an animal crush video, which of course is footage of an animal being intentionally crushed, burned, drowned, suffocated and impaled. Can we just do to these monsters what they do to these animals? I mean, that seems like a fair choice to make. At the end of the day, you have that capacity, or maybe you deserve a taste of your own medicine. Also, unsurprisingly, that particular deviant had child sexual abuse videos. He was later sentenced to 8 years in prison. Heather also faced animal torture charges. They seem like a delightful couple, don't they? Just the kind of people you wish were your neighbours. Now, of course, there's another victim in this case, aside from all those animals. Erin, Britton's wife. She said, he has literally destroyed my entire life. Now, after Britton's arrest, unbelievably, this is the gall of this man. This is why this guy's never going to be cured. Doesn't matter what psychological intervention he has for his sadistic paraphilia. Doesn't matter. Because it's in him. It's part of his DNA. He's just an evil man who has a predilection for harm. Because he contacts his poor wife, Erin, who didn't know anything about this, whose life has been just turned upside down. She no longer lives where she lived, a place that she used to love, that's now just infected with what he did. And this deviant gets in contact with this poor woman requesting books about dog domestication behaviour and breed history. I think we all know why he's requesting those books, because this is how he gets his sexual pleasure, isn't it? And she said that she actually found it really disturbing. Immediately she knew this was all about him continuing to fantasize in jail. He just wanted to be able to carry on that particular fantasy. You won't be surprised to know that she's divorced him. Of course she has. She's even changed her last name. She's left the area. She actually has gone on safaris the last weeks. She said that before he actually got caught for this, their relationship had kind of transitioned, of course, because this guy's not interested in women, is he? He's interested in kids and animals. So she said it kind of transitioned more to a strong friendship and a partnership. They hadn't been intimate for a while. They slept in different bedrooms. And she said that he had actually began to spend a great deal more time on his computer. And she'd noticed he was becoming more and more withdrawn. Well, he wasn't becoming withdrawn, was he? He was just living out his fantasy, and he couldn't do that with her. So he was online doing it with those deviants who connected with him. And the scary thing is, if this man, this demon, hadn't filmed the sadistic things he was doing and uploaded the videos online, it's very likely he'd never have got caught. That would mean that he would continue doing those things, those horrific actions for the rest of his life. How many more animals would have been murdered by him? How many more dogs would have suffered these horrendous deaths? So it was his need for attention and to share with others that enabled him to be exposed. You know, it's that dark triad of personality traits: Machiavellianism, narcissism, psychopathy, and of course, underlining that, sadism without a doubt. So it's that superiority, that desire to believe that what he's doing can never be exposed because he's so clever. And that's his downfall. And thank God it's his downfall. And it's really scary because he'll be out of prison soon, won't he? His sentence was nowhere near long enough. And what's going to stop him doing it when he gets out again? What safeguards are going to be put in measure so that he can't harm animals? I mean, they can say in Australia he can't have a dog, but he just needs to get a flight, doesn't he? I mean, he's not allowed to own a dog, but how stringent are the checks going to be? How are we going to know that he's been kept away from animals? And the fact that he's not only had it in him to torture and murder animals in such a horrendous way, but he enjoys it, and he enjoys doing it on film and sharing that, it means he's a danger to the public, full stop. Animal cruelty, as we know, is an early indicator regarding the incremental shift towards violence to human beings. He's already been found to possess material featuring child abuse. Like I said, he wants vulnerable people and animals. I don't think it's a leap to say he is a danger to people as well as animals. And I hope he will be treated as a danger to children. But I'm going to be honest, I don't think anything has been put in place. I think the animal rights individual was correct in saying that that sentence is just pathetic. And it isn't going to be something that really gives him a true consequence. This guy is a predator of the highest level. He's exactly the same as any serial killer. He repeat kills. In this case, though, it's dogs that he repeat kills. But if this guy had a chance, if he thought he could get away with it, it would be kids. It would be likely to be humans. It's as simple as that. Like I said, to pick dogs, they're sentient, they're emotional, they express on their face the way they feel. And he loved it. He absolutely loved it. Listen, if you've got to this point today, I want to apologise for having to go into the detail that I've gone into, but I also think it's just so important. These people exist. We have to wake up to the evil that is within our communities. He is not a lone wolf. These people connect. These people amplify. These people grow in danger. These people permission base, and these people escalate their crimes and sometimes transfer them, in these cases, to children or human beings per se. And that is just devastating to know. I know that it's been a stomach-churning one. I went into detail because I felt it was important to do so. I went into detail because at the end of the day, those dogs mattered. And they went through unimaginable agony just to give this guy sadistic pleasure. I hope he never gets out of prison. Honestly, I hope something happens to him and he never walks free again. Because when men like this walk streets that we share, no one's safe. Look after yourselves, guys. Like I said, if you made it to the end, well done. It was horrific to research. It's been horrific telling the story. But I'm not going to shy away from the reality of what's going on behind closed doors in our world. Look after yourselves. I'll see you again next time. Be safe.